Okay, hello everyone and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I am Kelsey Woodworth, the Content Marketing Manager here at Givesmart. And today with this webinar, Managing More Campaigns to Close the Gap, we are going to be looking at how you can run multiple smaller campaigns that will help your organization close the funding gap that has likely been caused by COVID-19. And so we're not here to put more on your plate, but rather we're here to help you work more efficiently and optimize various types of campaigns and fundraisers that you're going to host throughout the year. So we have two lovely speakers with us today. We have Laura Barlow, Customer Success Manager, and Brandon Steck, our Director of Marketing, both from Givesmart, and they are both stellar fundraisers in their own right and work closely with our Givesmart customers across the entire country. And so they will be able to give us really great insights today on what organizations, your peers are doing and how they're succeeding and the data behind why. So thank you, Laura and Brandon, for joining us today.
Thanks, happy to be here.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, well, we anticipate going around 45 minutes today in terms of content, and then we'll be taking some questions as we go. So please do pop them in the chat as they come to you. And also we will be addressing any of the extra ones at the end during a little Q&A session as well. So we are also recording this session today, so do look out for the recording link in our follow-up email if that is of any interest to you. So just another note too, before we dive in, as we run through today's content, I just wanted to note that we're going to be addressing internal strategy for your organization and external communications as it pertains to each section that we go through. So when it comes to managing multiple campaigns, we want to highlight the nuances between, what happens internally with your team and then also what happens externally with your donors. And so while we launch this quick poll, let me just go ahead and set this. So how are you and your team feeling about managing your fundraising strategy right now? So if you guys could all weigh in on that. Brandon, if you could just tell us a little bit about why we're not trying to overwhelm anyone today, and kind of why we're talking about this different mindset.
Yeah, for sure. So as you said, we're not trying to overwhelm anyone. What we're trying to do is offer a way to handle this new normal that we're all in, this different mindset where multiple campaigns, smaller campaigns throughout the year can kind of fill the gap of what used to be the one big gala that everyone would run. There's less pressure to do one big night, but there's more to do. So we want to talk about ways that you'll be able to manage, but also to look at experimenting with some new campaigns, segmenting your database and looking at what fits best for what donors, and spark some creativity. As always, we love to share different ideas that will help bring out that new normal, that new idea that will be the really cool campaign we talk about on another webinar in the future. So that's the real goal here, and hopefully this gives a few tidbits to help manage your change of focus here, going to more campaigns, sometimes smaller campaigns.
Okay, cool. So Laura, what do you make of these poll results?
Well, it's encouraging that we don't have as many help we don't know where to start. And it makes sense that people feel good, but during these times, they're worried about hitting their goals. And so hopefully through this webinar, we're going to try to give you guys some different ideas and different ways to kind of think outside the box. And hopefully that would help you to hit your goals.
All right, great. So the sections we're going to run through today are the types of campaigns that your organization can run simultaneously, how to differentiate and run these various campaigns, how to prioritize and segment your donors to set up for success, and then the data behind why running multiple campaigns actually does bridge these fundraising gaps. So Laura, if you could take us through the types of campaigns that an organization can run simultaneously, but also how internally a team might decide which campaigns they want to run.
Yeah, I think a team just needs to first decide what type of campaign do you want to run. Do you want to run a fundraiser or a thank you event, a community builder? Once you kind of decide on that, what the point and focus of, then you can go forward and build the elements. Do you want to do, a donate only campaign? Do you want to do a virtual event? You kind of just decide what works best for your organization, as well as maybe do a little research and see what worked best in the past for your organization, and kind of go off of there and see what has made the most dollars for you, and just kind of go from there to see, you know, the point. If the point is to get the word out on your organization, that's one thing, or if it's to raise as much money as possible, that's another focus. So that's kind of the first step there. And then after that, once you kind of decide what the focus of the event is, we have so many ways that you can run fundraising events. We've got, as you'll see on this slide, you could do obviously a silent auction, a vote campaign, a text to donate. You could sell raffle tickets to something. You could do, you know, holiday parties, recurring giving. A lot of these things are just readily available to set up on the Givesmart page. And also we can run a few of these simultaneously. You could do, you know, you could do a peer-to-peer campaign with our champions function on Givesmart at the same time that you're doing a 5K, so that people are raising money for themselves and, you know, going towards making money for your organization. You could do a holiday party and include a text to vote during that holiday party. If it's a virtual holiday party, that's great too. You know, send that text to donate. All of these things, it gives you kind of endless amounts of things that you can run, and don't be afraid to run multiple of these campaigns at the same time.
And so, Brendan, how can organizations and their donors then keep all of these campaigns?
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge here as you think about, oh, I'm going to run all these different things. How do I keep them well organized for my donors, but also our team? So one example from one of our customers here is First Tee Delaware, where they created an events tab on their website, which is, here's all the things coming up and here's all the things that you might have missed. Just one trick that we highly recommend of just getting something in front of donors that's easy to go find things, and then making sure you can just link to the different pages. Oftentimes what they'll do is link to if they have Givesmart, they'll link to their page right through the website, and that allows people to go through their website, get to the fundraiser, and participate. Whether you're running one or multiple campaigns, it's extremely beneficial to have this information at all dates and times listed on your website. You know, we ran over the last few months, it feels like 100, but 30 or so webinars. And the big thing we've always done is make sure it's all in one place so people can go find those things as a resource. It's the same concept, making it easy for people to find things so they can do what they need to do rather than trying to hunt down how to give you money. So that's one way. Your communication model is obviously going to be a piece of this, where social media and all the other different aspects have an easy, whether you're really good at Excel or something like that, have an easy calendar so you know what you're promoting when, you're not overlapping. And we'll talk a little bit about social media a little bit later, but plan those campaigns with each other in mind. So if you know you're going to be promoting, for instance, a campaign today, don't be also promoting a campaign tomorrow by email or whatnot. So you really build out that calendar. And then as you look at that.
So yeah, I was just going to say, so once we have the campaigns laid out, like, yeah, Brendan, just a question to you. How should organizations, operate and differentiate their campaigns from other fundraisers that might be happening at the same time?
That's a great question. When we were putting this together, it was almost like thinking of what's our biggest competition, ourselves or those others that are doing campaigns. So we'll kind of talk about both scenarios. But when you're telling your story here, put some time into it. Spend some time thinking about how is your story maybe different today than it was 6 months ago. Refresh your message and think about the impact that you're having on your constituents, on your donor base, and what is really going to resonate for for them in regards to taking movement. So if you're an education foundation and one of the missions you have right now is to help students that can't afford to get laptops so they can do the homeschooling easier, not homeschooling, that's not the right term, but the virtual education easier, that is, something you should put into your story rather than the typical mission you've been telling, depending on how you've been communicating that. That's likely going to resonate a lot more with donors. It's also a new message. Keeping things fresh and having a cohesive way of sharing that will trigger some re-engagement for a donor who maybe has heard the same thing over and over again. And even if they're happy, they may be looking just for another reason to support your organization. So it doesn't hurt to send the same message to a lot of donors, but it's definitely beneficial to mix up your messaging over time. And then as you're looking at just internally how to manage this, and one thing that we know really well is fundraising software. So to differentiate, make sure you have the data. So this is just a snapshot of a dashboard that is through the Givesmart platform, but you have an organization hub that you should be using to manage these campaigns internally. And keep in mind, donor management is something that is crucial to everyone, whether you're doing it in Excel or using a management system. Make sure that you have a tool that can easily be transmitted to those different systems, or at least you can get the data out. So you can help your finance team, so you can help your development team and management know what's going on, know what's being successful, and maybe find some tidbits of, so-and-so hadn't given to us in 3 years and they bought a raffle ticket. Well, that's a pretty big win. It might not sound like it, but bringing someone back is something you should be able to call out, and using data to do that will help you. And the other side of it is to do some comparative analysis. So I'm a big researcher, as many know, and one of the things that I highly recommend is find out what's going on in the area. What 5Ks are being ran, what virtual galas are being done, and try to schedule around those, or try to offer something different that is not the exact replica of something that's already being done, so you don't fall on deaf ears and that you have the opportunity to expand your reach. It's also good to learn from what worked. We had an outside the room webinar a few weeks ago where they said they watched several live streams before they did theirs. I believe it was Misericordia, if I'm not mistaken, and they're a large organization and they had a huge gala coming up, but they still wanted to see what was being done so they could either learn from it or replicate what worked really well in that tactic. So doing that research will allow you to think through the positives, the negatives as a guest, and then you can better yourself. And that's obviously a lot of you are here doing your research from us, but also look at the organizations in your area, organizations that are just this, have the same mission in a different area. So if you're a children's shelter in one area and there's a children's shelter in a similar city, maybe up north, see what they're doing. They're trying to solve for similar problems right now, and it doesn't hurt to, not recreate the wheel. It makes it a whole lot easier on all of us. I'm going to toss to Laura here, but after an organization has figured out what their competition is up to, how do they put out that message and why they should come to their own fundraiser?
Yeah, I mean, as event planners, we all know that multiple events on one weekend is not a new thing, even if it's virtual. So kind of building on top of what Brandon was saying, make sure your message is clear. You want your story to compel them to come and, be part of the solution to what you're trying to solve. You can also just make sure you provide added value to their lives and to their experiences right now. Really, you're giving them an experience on Givesmart that you can't get anywhere else. And maybe your fundraising is not quite swinging atop the trees, but maybe it's access to an exclusive venue or after hours experience, mingling with a particular group, entertainment, food opportunities. There's all kinds of things you guys could do. Create your own twist. think outside the box in ideas. Definitely look at other events that are going on. See if it kind of builds ideas within you, and anything you've been wanting to try, now is the perfect time to be able to go and try different ways of fundraising, try different things outside the box that aren't the normal, just straight across asking for money, for donations. Messaging is really the biggest part. You want to do it early. You want to message out early and make sure people know. You really could send out a save the date without having anything else planned. So definitely get that word out early so people can block it on their calendars. And it also gives them, a reason to look out for your emails or look out for your invitations in the future. So messaging is really the most important. It's also important to get your message out in terms of what your goal is. We're trying to fundraise for X, or, kind of just get that message out so that people feel engaged. And that could be by word of mouth, by social media, kind of all of those avenues to get people excited about your event and get them ready to, like I said, looking forward to the weekend of, November 2nd or whatever it is. It helps people to kind of stay excited, and then also block that date in case there are other events that weekend.
Yeah, and so thanks for sharing that, Laura. And now onto the kind of the who, what, where, when. How should organizations be prioritizing and segmenting their campaigns and donors? So Brandon, you're the marketing expert, so over to you on this.
I'm the marketing guy, and I also get really excited about research and data. So I apologize if I'm heavy on the data, but I think it's so important to be using the data to guide your strategy here. So marketing and promoting your campaign, and really it's important that when you have different campaigns going on, you have different marketing campaigns behind them. So different fundraisers have a different technique, or they have a different message. Not everything is built into the email campaigns and only in your newsletter. Sometimes it's just a social media campaign. If it's for example, peer-to-peer campaigns are very social media driven. That doesn't mean that's the only place you promote them, but timing of those is obviously going to be a big piece of that. So when you launch a peer-to-peer campaign, think about, when am I going to promote it, and how am I going to message it differently than maybe when I posted about my virtual gala. I know a lot of organizations here are trying to figure that out here for the fall, of how they promote this new spin on their recent event. But to avoid burnout, you need to think about, okay, what's my frequency? We are in the tech space. It's going to be a different frequency for us because our mission and message is going to be different. But we have done some research on that, and we decided that our frequency was not going to expand beyond 5 times a week. So we decided that was how we're going to do that. Then we assigned what campaigns went where and what fit best. LinkedIn might not be the best place to be talking about our bowl-a-thon, but it is a great place to talk about our networking event. So think about that as you're doing some of your campaigns, and then you will be able to promote those in a more efficient manner. If you have someone's attention, it doesn't hurt to keep their attention with something new. Keep putting something out there that fits. And oftentimes a donor will tell you, hey, I'm fatigued, or you're doing too much. Kelsey, did you have a question there? I heard you jump in.
Yeah, sorry. I was just we had a question come in that is pretty spot on with what you're addressing, but basically just asking, how can we run multiple campaigns without making our community feel like we're always asking for a donation? So I think this ties into what you're addressing with burnout.
Yeah, for sure. The simple answer, and I simplify it just because it really is the case, is don't always ask for a donation. Have a game, have a contest. There's money involved. They have to give you money to participate, but it's not, hey, support us. It's, hey, come do this fun thing, or come watch this fun drive-in movie and the proceeds go to us, or this restaurant is partnering with us, buy a gift certificate so we can support our local restaurant, but also the proceeds go to our organization. And then, of course, show appreciation over time. Think about a thank you event, mixing that in. And don't just thank your top donors. Thank those folks that are out there supporting you in the field. Maybe they're only able to give a little bit. We all know the challenges today, but there are ways to do a fun thank you event that doesn't break the bank, that allows them to feel appreciated. And often those things come with additional donations. You don't always have to say, hey, support us. You can say, hey, come join us. And oftentimes that's going to be, you know, I'm in marketing, I'm in the spin game, but that's going to be a different approach. And just continuing on here, segmentation. So my favorite topic, we have a donor segmentation guide that we released a while ago, but we just refreshed it, and we've been doing research on this topic for a while. There's two resources, the guide, and then there's also the donor experience study we did back in 2018 that's still very relevant for this topic, and it's thinking about your donors as different generations, different age groups, and what they're most interested in. We found a lot of interesting things. You know, when you look at your donors, you might want to isolate a group that hasn't donated in a while, but they loved playing in your softball tournament. Well, they have a specific type of interest. You're not going to likely get more involvement from them by offering them something they wouldn't normally be interested in. So look at, how does that group or that generation like to donate, like to participate? You know, isolate, you know, your donors into different segments without obviously telling them, but knowing that this is their interest level, or this is their type of giving, and this is how they interact with us. If you have someone who hasn't opened an email ever, but they donate to you every year for your annual gala, it's probably not necessary to keep emailing them as often. It's probably more important to put them into a phone tree and see what else you can do to get kind of a maximization of their giving. And there's ways you can do that. If you have technology that is tracking these things, if you have done a donor segmentation exercise, that is definitely possible to do that. But you know, there are cases where you might not have the data. So we'll talk a little bit about what do you do if you just need to learn about your donors as we go on here further. But definitely check out those resources that we shared there. Laura, I know you've got some thoughts on this here too, but you know, just to get us started on this topic, as I know it's a big topic of organizations, maybe they don't have the data or they don't know where to start of just getting that segmentation going. My number one tip is to grab a list of 50 donors. Don't discriminate whatsoever. Don't even look at the names. Just grab the first 50 records and do some research. Social media, dig into whatever you can with the data that you have. What have they attended? What have they bought tickets for? What auction items did they bid on? And build a profile yourself. We all can kind of make our own assumptions of what people are interested in based on what they're bidding on. I know of an organization that had a donor that was very interested in a lot of the different literacy programs they had, and they were donating to those different programs, and they ended up buying a book at an event, and they attended an author event. That told them that that specific donor was geared more towards literacy style events. So they were able to then approach that donor and say, hey, we have this author event. Would you be interested in attending? They'd never actually attended an event before. They bought a ticket right away and they attended. That's another donation. So any other things you want to add in there, Laura, as I've kind of thrown a few things out already?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, I mean, kind of the word donor segmentation is a little more just learning about your donors. It's just as simple as, you know, saying these are our top tier donors and these are what they like to donate to, what they like to you know, what they're interested in, what will get their attention that they want to donate to. It's kind of just, donor segmentation is a lot about the behaviors of the donors and the donation amounts that come in. If you find that a lot more people are donating maybe around Thanksgiving, that would be a great time to kind of go, you know, run a campaign, run at least a donation campaign. Really, it's just kind of, especially for nonprofits, I think it's a really good way to kind of talk to your donors and become closer to them and help them to realize that you know what they're interested in and that you know what they want to donate to. So that's kind of what we mean when we say, you know, donor segmentation. Yeah, Brandon, did you have another thought on that?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that, you know, there's some tricks that you can do to collect some of this data. You know, one of the ways is as people register for events, ask them their birthday. They'll think you want to send them a birthday card.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that if I give you a birthday, I'm going to get a birthday card, but you know, that sometimes doesn't always happen, but that allows you to get, you know, get an idea of the generations people fall in without saying, hey, how old are you?
Yeah.
Being a lot more sensitive to that. And obviously collecting someone's birthday does allow you to say, hey, would you like to run a birthday fundraiser for us? You can do it very easily through our peer-to-peer campaign right here. Just click here to do that. Two kind of techniques there that allow you to kind of capitalize on things. And the other things that you can do is if you're a school and you have an alumni database, but you don't know what year they maybe graduated, or you don't know some of the specifics about them, send a survey out. Just try and get a little bit of information there. Kind of an end of the year, you know, thing that you can do of just say, hey, thank you for your support. We're just getting a little bit more information so we can gear our next season of events towards our donors. And that honesty will often get you some good responses.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask questions on these registrations for these events. That's a great way to kind of gather that information as people are filling out the registration sheet anyway. Ask them a question, ask them what they're interested in, or like Brandon said, what's their birthday, just kind of to gather some more of that data and information. You can definitely do it on any registration that you are creating for an event or donation appeal. Yeah, those places as well.
Yep. And lastly, if you have Google Analytics set up on your website, use that monthly, look at that and see where are people coming from. It does give you some demographic data on, you know, what types of people are visiting you, and also what are people reading? What are people looking at? If you have a blog, find out which blogs are most popular. We do it. We want to know what are people most interested in. It's a technique, and we have some Google Analytics information on our blog that we will make sure and share with you as well. But it is a tool that oftentimes I see nonprofits are not utilizing to their best capabilities, and it is such a great insight into your website. Even if you have 50 visitors in a month, you'll learn something new probably every month.
So
Laura, you
yes,
want to tell us a little bit more about social? Because I know I
sure.
talked a lot about it already.
No worries. Yeah, I'll just kind of jump on what you were talking about. Really, it's just the way that social media is, you know, different groups. It attracts different groups. So you've got Facebook, which is probably the most popular. I think everybody knows, you know, every age has a Facebook page. Every group has a Facebook page. Twitter is a little bit more niche, but it spans a greater age range. It may be less people, but it gives you a greater range. Instagram, we know, is kind of a younger audience. LinkedIn is a great social media for professional endeavors. So if you're looking for community partners or sponsorships, that's a great place to go and search your area, search your focus. But really, I mean, as an organization, you can have a presence on all of these platforms and just engage different donors of different, you know, different generations and platforms. And don't be afraid to definitely use all of the social media platforms for your organization, because no matter where your donors are, you could touch them on all of these different platforms.
Yeah, can I just add real quick? Social media can also be tracked back to your Google Analytics. There was a question in there on how much it costs. It's free. You just have to add the code to your website. So if you have someone who built your website and knows the coding, you can go grab that and register for Google Analytics. There's all kinds of instructions on the Google site there, but definitely recommend, if you don't have that code installed, to just jump in there and to get that going, because that will help you track even your social media traffic of who's coming from social media to your different pages when you share videos and stories like that.
Okay, great, thanks. And kind of continuing on that data trend, to wrap it up, Brendan, if we could go through the data behind why running multiple campaigns actually bridges these fundraising gaps.
Sorry, I went on mute there for a second. Yeah, so this first slide here, we're looking at the average amount raised when you look at campaigns. When you run one campaign, this is all through the Givesmart platform, versus running 2+ or 2 more campaigns. So just by running one more campaign, what we found is that organizations are raising about 72% more than what they raised with one campaign. So think about it this way: what could you do with 70% more fundraising just by doing one more campaign? It doesn't have to be something extensive. And then, since our last staffed event in mid-March, we've been staffing events for years, and this was a big change for us. We've actually seen a 28% increase in customers that are running 2+ campaigns, and that's why this webinar was so important to us. We think about all the different things people are trying to do, but gosh, there's all kinds of best practices that are being done and things to learn from. So that was really a trigger point for us. And then there's some data on the right here, Laura. I know you were excited about sharing with everyone as well.
Yeah, I think, that point that historically donors are willing to give 4 to 10 times a year, if you run one giant event in October, you've got a full year where you're not engaging with your donors. And this may be a good time to do some of those smaller dollar, fundraisers, or to engage with your donors. This year especially, everybody knows everyone's struggling. We're in a pandemic. People are giving more. People are wanting to find ways, to help someone. And I think making it easy for them to do so by running a couple different campaigns so that they know exactly where to go if they want to donate something. Make it easy for them, make it easy for your donors. And give them the opportunities to give, because as we've seen, 4 to 10 times a year, I'm not saying run 10 campaigns, but run a couple more, so that it's more of a year-round fundraising cycle than just one event-based, because right now, as we know, it's harder to do the one giant event and make it successful. So definitely give your donors as many opportunities to give as you can. That has always been very successful for any fundraising adventure.
That is spot on. And then we've got another data point, because everyone knows we love data here. So as we look at when to start fundraising, we're going into the fall here, and what we've kind of seen as a trend is organizations are starting to collect donations earlier on campaigns. So for instance, if you have a campaign that's an event, a virtual gala, for example, easy to use as a date in October, 73 days on average now, organizations start collecting that first dollar. And that could be selling tickets, but that is also getting donations, selling raffle tickets. And in this new virtual world, because ticket sales are less prominent and there's more of these other things, it was interesting to see that severe uptick in comparison. So people are pushing more out there. Obviously, you have to communicate that to get the donation, because that is an actual dollar coming in the door. but a trend that we wanted to make sure to call out.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And so I think just to wrap up before we jump into questions, just going to run through these takeaways. And also I just wanted to remind everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we will get to them. But our big three takeaways kind of from today is to, the first one is you don't have to do everything at once. So we talked about a ton of different campaigns that you can run throughout the year and that you could go through. They can go simultaneously, but you definitely don't have to do it all at the same time. Pace yourself. And it's important to think everything through and learn from your mistakes. Additionally, the only failure really that you can do is to just not even try at all. So as a fundraiser, this is applicable really at any point, whether you're trying a new type of campaign or trying a new way of reaching out to people or a new way of utilizing social. All you can do is really try and see if it works. And so for the third takeaway is you want to give your donors multiple opportunities to give, provide them different ways, different price points. Maybe it's just paying to participate in a game, or it could be a huge monetary donation, or it could be a small purchase in an auction. That looks a lot of different ways, and as long as you continue to give them ways to make donations, it will happen, because we are finding now that donors are willing to give. And so, okay, let's jump into some questions. And okay, so the first one, Laura, is going to be for you. Could you please explain the vote function?
Sure, yeah. So we've seen a lot of these vote functions in the past when we were doing physical events for something like a Dancing with the Stars, where you have different groups that are, or different people that are doing a performance. And this could be something that could be done virtually, where someone could do a song or a performance or something. And donors, you'd set up a item on the site for each person. And so then it takes about, you charge $1 or $5 for every vote. So if somebody wants to get in there and, I'm voting for my mom and I'm going to do $50, that's, 50 votes. So I just think it's just an easy way to kind of get those, if you want to do like a competition type thing and get people into it, if you've got like a close-knit community, a lot of times people, can help with that. And again, that's something you could do virtually and just do it by videos or by, videos or kind of do a competition that way for sure.
Cool. Brandon, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, we just had a really cool example of this. So an organization did an outside the room webinar with us, and they did a virtual bartender contest. And we can share this recording with anyone of what they pulled off. But that unique way of creating competition virtually and having a lot of fun with it really bred success. So a vote campaign is really great in a virtual setting because people have the capabilities to still get you something. One of the fun campaigns that we've seen lately, I almost said funnest, which I know is not a word, is the Dopest Dad contest, which, I think it's hilarious and I think it's a lot of fun. And I'm blanking on the organization running it, but it is, just another way to kind of have a little creativity to it, do something unique. But, some of these things can be done anywhere, because not, if the virtual bartender was done in New York, people in Houston might not have heard of it. So just one example I wanted to throw out there.
Cool. Okay, so Brandon, here's a question for you. Do you have any resources regarding types of fundraising campaigns that are highly engaging but low maintenance?
Oh, yeah. So when you think about a highly engaging campaign, you look at things that have low barrier to entry, and often those will be raffles, vote campaigns, things that don't cost the donor a lot of money, therefore you can get more people involved, and are easy to share on social. So you don't need to go to the extent of maybe building an entire peer-to-peer campaign, but you can still engage peers, and that is where you can do a vote contest. That's a really good option. But a raffle or a game of chance, something that really doesn't have a huge lift on your part other than promoting it and getting word of mouth out is going to be beneficial for high engagement. The more general the appeal, the more likely you're going to get more donors. So if you think about things like a wine poll, where most people would be interested in winning a random bottle of wine, or if your constituency is more geared towards kids and you do a activity that is more towards the mystery gift bag where they get toys, or something to engage the kids more, that will get higher appeal and it's a lower cost. So if you want high engagement, you're going to have to do a little work. You're always going to have to promote these, but those things catch on and they get good word of mouth, especially if it's unique and different. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah. Okay, I have another question for Brandon or for Laura. Any suggestions on stewardship ideas? All of my usual tools, things like reception, studio visits, private luncheons, backstage tours, are unavailable because of the pandemic. So any suggestions for pandemic-friendly stewardship ideas?
Yeah, I'm happy to share a couple ideas. There's a company I'm friendly with and I know real well. They call themselves a virtual toast, but it's basically the opportunity to do a virtual wine tasting, a 3-course meal. But you can do that with a large group. So that's setting up a Zoom meeting, and then you have everyone gets their meal, everyone gets their bottle of wine, and they get to experience, experience that together. That togetherness is an important part of stewardship because the best stewards of donors are other donors. So when you look at the opportunity to not necessarily gather, but still gather virtually, things like that have really done well. And then if you look at the other ways you can really do a great stewardship is to put together some type of a social distant activity that they can do in small groups. So if it's depending on your community, if local restaurants are willing to host a private dinner for a small group, that's a great way to steward them in a small way. It's hard to do it in a big group, we all know that, but there are ways to kind of gather in a little bit.
Okay, great, thank you. Laura, how do you recommend collecting donors' age? We know it's valuable, but we're sensitive to this protected information.
Sure, yeah. I think we kind of mentioned it before, but maybe don't just straight across ask for their age. You could ask for what's your birthday, what's something like that, or just ask. I mean, it just depends. If you've got a big group that you could definitely just ask birth date as one of their registration questions. But also, like I said, just maybe try to ask it a different way. I think the birthday thing is a great idea. To get people, like you said, if they're going to send me a card, I'll take a card. That'd be great. So I think just kind of maybe either asking it a different way or just go ahead and ask on the registration form. And I think that'll get you their birthdays pretty easily.
And if you don't want to ask and you have a small group that you just need to know, you could do research and you could find out through social media, when they graduated high school or when they graduated college, and that might give you at least an insight into what generation they're in. You don't need someone's exact age to know where they would fall on the spectrum in regards to generations. You don't want to offend someone by asking their age, but you also don't want to not know your donors. And if you can do the research behind the scenes, LinkedIn is a great tool because most people will put their college graduation year on there. Some won't, some don't want that information out there. Yeah. And Facebook has it as well. So don't be afraid to, connect with your donors through social to identify that, their interests and all that. There's nothing wrong with research in a, obviously reasonable manner. You're not going to hire hackers out there to go get personal information, but use what's out there as something that will at least be indicators so you can better understand what their interest levels would be.
Yeah, great. We have a question here for Laura or Brandon. How many customers, or just general kind of sense, are you seeing that are starting to revive in-person events?
I've seen it's really a regional situation depending on where you live. Obviously, if you see some of those bigger cities, they're a little bit more tight on the restrictions. I have been seeing, honestly, most of my customers are either just starting to integrate hybrid events where they maybe I've had a lot that do house parties. So their guests would, they have hosts for different parties, and then you have no more than 10 people or whatever the restriction, your local restriction is. And then you do a virtual event and, stream it into these houses. So that's kind of a different way that I've seen. I haven't seen many giant events as of now. But again, totally regionally specific to what to where you live and, the area that you are fundraising at.
For sure. And I actually just was working with a customer. They had their virtual gala go basically hybrid. They had several house parties where big donors hosted friends and family. They actually got a bunch of new donors through that by expanding their reach and, kind of people who just wanted to gather together. They weren't big parties. They were actually across the country, which was kind of fun for them because they were in very different time zones. And one of the things she messaged me afterwards is, even though it was different and the technology wasn't perfect for them in regards to the Zoom meeting that they used, they still had a blast because they were able to see each other. So the hybrid method is kind of taking on, and going to that hosted party model is what we're seeing most prominently. But we haven't had anyone come to us trying to do a full 300, 400, 500 person live gala yet, because as we know, things aren't really that way. So finding solutions through hybrid and doing small things is probably the best route to go.
Great. And we have a question here. Is email or paper mail better when asking for donations?
It depends on your donor. I would say that if you have a donor base that is older, they probably open their mail more often than a millennial generation would. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't send it to everyone. Just manage your expectations and do other things to get those other donors. A really good thought is, if a donor wants to go paperless, just like paperless billing, offer the option. Every year we've been sending you these letters. Would you like to go paperless? And that'll tell you. And that'll be a great way to say, okay, this person does not need this fancy mailing every year. We can send them an email or a text message, for that matter. The other thing to consider, not just email and mail, is if you're able to do a text to donate campaign promoting your annual campaign in segments. There are segments who will respond to that and go to links more frequently when you are communicating that to them right where they are most often. We get hundreds and hundreds of emails. Everyone got 2 emails from Kelsey for this webinar, and luckily everyone opened them and registered, but there's plenty of people who don't open their emails, and that's a challenge that in this world you have to find different ways to communicate. Mailing letters has not gone away, but it's definitely something to think about as you look at segmentation.
Yeah, it adds a little bit more of a cost. Oh, sorry. It adds just a little bit more of a cost, but I also think, it's like Brandon said, right now, mail has not gone away. One thing you could do both to start out and see, maybe that's one of your registration questions, where would you like to go paperless, or do you prefer mail, or something like that, to also get that information from the donors.
Yeah, great. I have another question here for either of you. Are there certain types of fundraisers that are more effective than others using the Givesmart system?
I'll take this because I am working with these every day. You know, there's not a way to do, you know, to get, I guess I should say there's not one that's more popular than others. There, I think easiest for these organizations are the ones that are a little bit lower maintenance, like a donation campaign that you can just set and, you know, and have people donate. I think honestly, doing a silent auction, doing raffles is a great way to do it. If a lot of people are having a hard time getting, getting silent auction items, if you get a couple, do raffles, get people to buy raffle tickets, and then that also gets them to come back when you're pulling the raffle winner. So I think things like that just make it easy. Honestly, the best way, make it easy for your donors to donate and to engage with you. So I mean, I think with Givesmart, you can do raffles, you can do peer-to-peer, get people to in your community. You can do silent auction, you can do text to donate. I think any of those would make it easy for your donors to donate to your cause.
Okay, great. Brandon, is there anything here that you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, we've shared some data lately that really donation campaigns and auctions have been the most prominent on the platform. Our peer-to-peer platform is newer, and we're seeing lots and lots of organizations jumping on that. So we are seeing that those are probably the three things that I would, you know, recommend in this day and age. It's less about the platform and what it can do, and more about what's going to fit your donors. Our platform can pretty much do any type of fundraising campaign you think of, but it's what do you want to accomplish? And you know, we have, you know, people like Laura who have seen really everything. You know, I've seen, you know, like I said, I've seen a Dopest Dad contest, so I've really seen everything too. But you know, think about first and foremost, yes, you need to pick a platform, but the platform should be able to fit, allowing you to do multiple campaigns. You should be looking at platforms that nowadays are more flexible to your needs, and have things like peer-to-peer integrated together, so you can run your gala but add that in there without having to do the hassle. So do your investigative work when you're looking at that. That's a key thing. And then just, you know, we're seeing a lot of really tremendous donation campaigns and auctions and games of chance. You know, we've got several webinars worth of those that we're happy to share with you, but obviously it's a never-ending conversation, I like to say, of the different things that are working. And then, you know, worst case, when you have a subscription, you try one thing, it doesn't work, you have 5 other things that you can still try, because you're not limited to just one campaign.
And don't be afraid to think outside the box. Try something, try different things, and don't be afraid to kind of think outside the box.
Cool. All right, everyone. Well, thank you again. That is all the time we have to answer those questions. And you can always write to us anytime. We're happy to answer your questions. And so thank you again to Laura and Brandon for joining us today. After this, if you guys have an extra 60 seconds, please fill out our survey so that we can, you know, better curate our future content towards what you're hoping to learn, and also to just see, you know, hopefully that you found value out of today's call. So we really appreciate your feedback, and we do use it to guide all that we do. And lastly, if you are able, join us tomorrow for our final episode of Outside of the Room, a webinar series we've been doing weekly, and it's going to be really great with my friend's place. They're based out of Los Angeles, and they have a lot to share that I'm really actually looking forward to. And also, if you're planning to run a holiday fundraiser this year, you can join us on the 13th, and we'll be talking about how to run your holiday fundraiser virtually. And we will be sending out the registration links to these in the follow-up emails. And that is all. So everyone, please have a great